Hello, welcome. We had lots of tech issues in the first 5 minutes of this, which is what happens when you decide to live stream last minute. And OBS doesn't want to play games with you, or it's trying to play games with me, I guess I should say. So, here's the plan for what I wanted to do today. The first thing I want to go over in this video is balance and growth. So, how to balance and grow your skills in multiple languages. And then, if I have time, I do want to have a separate conversation about my recommendations of goals and habits that I usually share with my students and clients that you focus on for your language studies, whether you're learning one or multiple languages. Now, this is going to be me sharing my screen. So if you're watching me on TikTok right now, you want to hop over to the YouTube channel because that's where you're going to actually see the visuals of what we're working on. And I am not going to waste any more time because the tech already wasted the time for me. So let's just dive into it. So this is the beloved, the beautiful Notion template. I actually have this in another format in Sheet, but this is the Balance and Growth Language Learning Tracker. Now the Sheets version is very similar. I prefer Notion, and so while I made it first in Sheets because it was really quick to do, I made the Notion version for the people like me that really love Notion. And so the goal of this is to really help you record your study tasks, reflect on them, identify patterns that you're noticing, things that are working well, things that are not working well, areas that you can improve on in your language learning routine. The goal is for you to be able to have a solid picture, some data that you can look at and say, is this working or not working, and why not? The reflection process is something that I teach all of my students and clients. There is a whole more in-depth process inside of the Polyglot project, a slightly less in-depth version of it in Fluency Mastery Lab. And this is like bare bones basic, and it is completely free. So you can actually grab this tracker for yourself, and it comes in two formats. Now I'm going to walk through mostly the Notion version, but if I can, I'll try to bring up the Sheets version as well. But they work exactly the same. They're just in different formats. When you come here, you get to duplicate it. You're going to see all this additional stuff, the tutorial, which I'm actually going to update with this video right now here. And then you can access the Google Sheets version. Now there are two different trackers, and then there are the reflection prompts. So the things you ask yourself before doing each task, and the things that you think about when you're reflecting at the end of a day or the end of a week. If you're like me, daily reflection can be really tricky. And so I tend to focus on weekly reflections. That's a little bit more doable. That's something I can stick to and make consistent. And so the very first thing I want you to focus on is the task tracker for language learning. You're going to click on that in Notion. It's going to take you here. It's super simple. This tracker is for reviewing your tasks and reflecting periodically on the patterns that you notice, the things that you're doing or avoiding, the things that are working well and not working well, so that you can make strategic plans moving forward. So you're not just saying, oh, I don't like this textbook, I'm not going to use it. But you're saying, this textbook is not helpful for me because it doesn't even align with my goals. Or it is helpful for me, but I've been using it the wrong way. I've been approaching this textbook work in the wrong way because here's the things that I've avoided in the textbook. Here are the things that I really enjoy doing. Now here's my plan moving forward. So it really gives you that ability and ownership of your language studies. And so what you want to do in Notion, if you've never used Notion before, to create a new task, you can click here on new, or you can click on new up here. Either way, it's going to create one. This one will create one on the bottom of the list. This one will create one on the top of the list. But again, either way works. So description is all about what task did you do. So, an article on topic X is what I did, or I listened to the podcast episode. I had a conversation with my tutor. What were the actual things that you did? And then the next thing you want to put in. So let's say, for example, I completed 3 lessons on Lingo Dear for Korean. Let's say that's the task that I did. Now, what skills or areas did this focus on? Now, I color code so many things, and in the spirit of the color coding, speaking and listening, reading, writing, vocabulary, grammar, pronunciation. Now, Lingo Dear's lessons tend to be listening, reading, writing, vocabulary, grammar. So I'm going to put all of those skills. Now, how long did I do this for? When I work on Lingo Dear, it is anywhere from 15 minutes to 30 minutes. On an amazing day, I can get an hour, but on an average, about 15 minutes is my expectation for myself. And so let's say I did about 15 minutes, and I'm going to put that in. This is a good gauge of how long are the sessions you typically do. But if you're someone who's trying to increase how long you study, because it's something you want to do, then you can think about what are the ways that I can make my study sessions longer. Now, if you are feeling like you're not actually using that time wisely, it just helps you to reevaluate, well, if you only have 15 minutes, what are you actually going to do in that 15 minutes? And then the next thing you have is reflections about the task. So any thoughts that you had, any ahas, any things that you've learned, any things that you want to celebrate. This is also a great place to track wins as much as it is to track any setbacks that you've had. And so for the examples, if we were reading an article on a topic, maybe you found some new vocabulary. You were listening to a podcast episode. Maybe you felt a little overwhelmed by it, but you did actually understand most of it. You felt overwhelmed. It was a lot, but you got through it. And maybe in the conversation with your tutor, you practice pronunciation. It's just a note to tell you, like, what did you do? So maybe this one for Lingo Deer. And if you don't know the app Lingo Deer, it's very similar to Duolingo. You can say, lessons on color. Got about 95% on all three. Just a note. Like, you can even list the actual vocabulary that you learned if you would like to. Now, the next sections that we have here are energy levels and impact. And these two are actually going to give you a value here in the priority column. So, for example, when I think about energy, especially because I work with a lot of introverts, introverts are introverts not because we're shy, because we are socially awkward or whatever other words that people tend to want to put with introverts, but we are introverts simply because of energy, and extroverts are extroverts because of energy. How we use energy, how it depletes, and how we regain it and recharge it. Introverts regain energy from being alone, from being solo, which is why so many introverts are like, I need 3 to 5 business days after a good social session. Me, I'm an outgoing introvert, which is why so many people who talk with me are like, I would never have guessed that you're an introvert. Yeah, that's because it's not about being shy. It's literally about my energy. And once I've used it all, I don't get energy from being with people. I get energy from being by myself. So in this study session, let's say I was doing this Lingo Deer work. It took a lot of energy for me to get this done. Maybe on a really rough day, it took me a lot of energy. I'm going to go upwards of 5. Let's say I'll put a 4 here. It took about 4 for me to get this done. And then what was the impact on my language studies? So this is like, how helpful, supportive is this to your language studies? How is this helping you to is this the most helpful thing for you making progress on a scale of 1 to 5? And so for me, I know that Lingo Deer work is about a 3 to 4 on a given day. I know there are things that I could do that are even more helpful, but this sets like the foundations. And so what this is telling me now is that Lingo Deer lessons are probably a medium priority for me. So if I'm struggling to get anything done, and Lingo Deer is one of those things on my list, Lingo Deer is probably going to be the second thing that I do, not the first. So you'll notice that, for example, the article example right here, energy was low and the impact was high. The priority, therefore, is high. This is something you want to get done first. It doesn't take too much energy from you. The impact, so how it impacts your language studies, how it affects your progress, is higher. So you want to do this first, and then you might move into the Lingo Deer lessons if you have more of them. And then finally, podcast listening had a high impact, but also took a lot more of your energy. It's low priority. So that's something that you can do on your level of best. If you've heard me talk about levels of expectation, good, better, and best, then that would be your level of best, where if you have some extra time, you're going to do this last part. Now, that's pretty much what this tracker is all about. And the goal of this is to be able to look at your tasks over a course of the week to think about, okay, what tasks have I been doing consistently or avoiding? How much time am I spending on them? What skills have I been consistently boosting and improving in? How have my energy levels been when completing this task? Like, how much did it take for me to do this? What was the impact of this? Have I been doing more high priority tasks or low? Like, am I blending them together? Like, this is going to be able to answer all of those questions for you, so you can be more strategic with how you're using not just your time, but your energy when learning languages. And so now we have the next sheet, and you can get to it here or go back to the main page. It's a daily reflection tracker. And so this is post studying. After you study, after you get the things done, you can review what worked and what didn't work. And so you'll put the date. Let's say we're doing today's date. Time of this recording, the time of this live is the 12th. And reflection on overall day. Was super tired. struggle to complete those lingo dear lessons, but I did it. There we go. Now, one of the things that I talk about a lot is energy replenishing tasks. Again, this is helpful for anyone, but I think as an introvert, we don't always know how to do this because we look at extroverted ways of replenishing our energy, which is like talking with people. And that's the exact opposite of what we need. And so in this case, like what was something you did that actually re-energizes you, that renews your spirit and your soul and makes you excited to do things? Maybe it's a nap, maybe it's having a snack, maybe it's reading or doing something creative, maybe it's taking a walk outside, maybe it's literally just sitting on your bed and having the music blasting in your ears for 15 minutes. Whatever it is that replenishes your energy and makes you feel a little bit less drained so that you can go out and do the talky things is what we're looking for. And in this case, also that helps you to recover so that you're not burning yourself out with your language studies as well. And so for me, it's usually like video games, reading, creative stuff, like crocheting, knitting, drawing, painting, baking. Although baking a lot less now. Sometimes it's my hair. Like I got options. And so I hope that this gives you the space to find your own sort of toolkit of energy replenishing tasks that you can do. So we have our energy replenishing activities and then the outcome for next week. So what are you expecting? And actually, I actually explain a lot of the things here below as well. So energy replenishing activities, describe the activity you did that replenishes, that, refreshes your energy. Outcome for next week, what are the goals or intentions for the following week? So in the example, improve speaking confidence by practicing daily. Maybe it's not daily, maybe it's 3 to 5 times a week. In this case, maybe for me with the Lingo Deer stuff, maybe my intentions is to earn like 120 XP for the week because Lingo Deer tracks things by XP. And I could also say complete 3 sections. So that's like 2 lessons per section or something like that. Maybe that's my intentions for the week. And then this is the thing that I absolutely love. And I'm going to hide that last part because that's the extra fun part here, is motivation, confidence, consistency, energy levels. And yes, we're looking at energy levels again, but this is very important because it gives you something really special in the last part. And so with this motivation, we're thinking about how motivated were you that day to get the things done. So again, 1 out of 5, 1 being low, 5 being the highest. So let's say my motivation for getting the Lingo Deer stuff was about a 3. I wasn't as motivated. It was a little bit of a struggle. Now my confidence level, how confident in my abilities. Sometimes if I'm getting more questions right, my confidence is high. If I'm getting more questions wrong, I'm getting more frustrated. My confidence is a little bit lower. Let's say despite the fact that I wasn't as motivated and it was a struggle to get it done, confidence is 4 because it was stuff that wasn't too difficult for me. Let's keep going. Now consistency. How consistent have I been with this task? I've been fairly consistent. So we're going to give it 4. And then energy levels. I think on the last page I put a 3, but let's say that by the end of this task, my energy was at a 2. And my mood. What is my mood? Happy, excited, stressed, tired, frustrated. You can add in your own options as well. So you can literally right here type in annoyed, and then you can create that. You can change the color if you'd like to. You'll change the color here. These are the color options in Notion, and you can do a very similar thing in the spreadsheet. So here's the thing that I really love about this one and the Google Sheet version is that once you put in all of these values, now you finally I get to show you that I am almost coaching you in this sheet. So depending on what values you put for motivation, confidence, consistency, and energy levels, I'm then going to give you some recommendations. So my recommendations, almost like if you were talking with me, what would I tell you? And so in this case, I'm like, hey, your energy levels seem kind of low. And it's important to prioritize energy replenishing tasks to recharge. So consider activities like taking a walk, listening to music, or practicing mindfulness to boost your energy. And I'm saying that's what I recommend you doing, because consistency, confidence, motivation were okay. It was your energy levels that are impacting things. And that's what I want you to focus on in the following week or the next day as you're continuing with your progress. Now, let's say energy levels were okay. Now it's like, hey, consistency, keep it up. You're crushing it. Things look well. Because we're not trying to hit 5s across the board. We're just trying to stay consistent. And sometimes consistency is 3 across the board. But let's say, hey, you know what? My motivation was not there. It was not there at all. So I'm like, okay, you're feeling a little bit unmotivated. That's okay. Let's try to shake things up. Try diving into something new, setting some fun goals, and connecting with other learners, because we got to reignite that motivation. And if you know anything about the strategies I teach on motivation, these are a couple of the strategies I actually share with my students and clients. And so this isn't me just like throwing things out there that I would never actually say. These are tips that I actually share with the people who work with me right now. And so you're getting almost like a free coaching session. Now, what I am hoping to do is I actually want to walk through the Google Sheet version as well, because I figure it's only helpful to go through both. But that's just one of my favorite parts of this sheet. And again, you can go to the task tracking page here. We're going to go to the main page. And then we have the final things, which are the questions, while I'm also pulling up on my other screen the Google Sheet. And so before each task, I want you to ask yourself these questions. Have I aligned this task with my language learning goals and my vision? So essentially, this is me asking you, or you asking yourself, do the tasks that you chose actually connect with the goals that you've set for your language studies? Or have you just pulled them out of a hat and said, yeah, I'm going to do this because that's what this person said to do? Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that at all. We want to make sure that it aligns with what you're actually trying to achieve in your language studies. Next one is, what specific impact will completing this task have on my journey? You'll notice that in the tracker, we actually talk about impact. So you can actually pull from that and then this is kind of before, but this is going to help you to actually fill in that impact area. So is it 1 out of 5? What is the impact of this specific thing for your language studies? The next question is, can it be simplified or expanded on? So simplified if it was too challenging and too frustrating. Expanded on if you found it too easy or you're looking for a bit of a challenge. The next one is, what will I miss if I skip this task? So if you decide to not do this, if you say, nope, I'm taking this out of my rotation of activities, what's going to happen? What are you going to miss out on? How is it going to impact your language studies? That's really what this is about. And then finally, how can I make this task more immersive or engaging? Immersion is kind of what you want to prioritize overall, because the more that it's going to be integrated into your brain, the more that you're going to be able to actually recall what you need to recall. So like from memory, and actually recognize things when you hear it and when you see it. So that I would say is priority number 1. And then engaging with it. Engaging means it makes it fun. You actually want to do this versus feeling forced to do the thing and then it doesn't get done and you procrastinate, which we don't want. And then the last area is just some daily reflection questions. I say daily, but again, if daily sounds like a lot, you can do this on a weekly basis. So what is one task I completed that was most impactful to my overall language learning journey? Like if you had to only do one thing on a regular basis, based on all the things you've done in your language studies, what would that one thing be and why? And this is based off of the data that you've gathered from these 2 trackers. The next one is, how did I make space for replenishing my energy during my language learning activities? And if you didn't do that, talk about that. Oh, I didn't think it was a priority. Or sometimes we say things like, I actually have to earn it. My reward is rest. My reward is a nap. My reward is water. Which it shouldn't be. Those are not rewards, those are requirements. And I think there's a shift that has to happen around that. And reflecting on it on a regular basis is one of the ways that puts it in your face. Hey, is that a good idea? Answer no. Don't make them rewards. And then what adjustments can I make to this activity moving forward? to ensure that strategic process or progress rather than just engaging in busy work. So what can you do to make sure that you're actually making progress and you're not just doing things for the sake of doing things in your language studies? And those are the 3 questions that I would recommend. So like this is the Notion version, and then what I'm going to pull up on the screen right now is the Google Sheets version, and briefly walk through that one just so that you have options. And before I move on, this is in the dark mode just because I like dark mode, but you can get this in the bright mode as well. And then here we have the full task tracker for Google Sheets. Yeah, you can see it. Okay, so this task tracker here, very, very similar. It's structured a little bit different. So this is more of a checklist here. These are just questions and you can answer them on your own. On paper, I would recommend like an ongoing journal, and in Notion, you can create that. But same process of adding in your energy level. So let's say energy level is 2 and the impact is 4. It's going to tell you that the priority is high and it's going to color code it for you. So the same thing happens here as well. And when you go to the daily reflections tracker, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit so it's a little easier to see it, that when you put in those values of, let's say motivation is 1 and confidence is 1 and consistency is 1, but your energy was great, right? Then it's going to give you my recommendation for that. Like, looks like you're facing some challenges with consistency, motivation, confidence, and energy in your language studies. So let's tackle that together. Try some smaller goals, try exploring new methods, and finding what sparks your passion for learning. And so I think that no matter which option that you choose for yourself, whether you're doing this one or the Notion version, it's going to give you exactly what you need in order to think about, how am I balancing what I'm doing in multiple languages? How am I prioritizing my growth or maintaining my skills in the languages that I'm learning? What is working for me? What is working against me or not working well? And similar to in the Notion where everything is detailed above, these all have notes here to explain what each one is. The link to this video will be officially here and you can watch it anytime to go over how to use this. Now, how do I use this in my language studies? Now, I have a more comprehensive way of doing this. Like, this is, again, the simplified version. It's like stage 1. Stage 2 is what I teach in Fluency Mastery Lab. Stage 3 is what I teach in the Polyglot Project. But what I do, even without writing it down, when I'm doing tasks, I'm always just like, why did I not want to do this today? Well, okay, what can I do about it? Do I need to pair it with some good music and maybe that gets me in a really good headspace? Or do I need to do this last? Do I need to do this first? I have been reflecting for years with my language studies. So for me, it's a lot easier for me to do it without writing it down and tracking. And I track less often than I usually recommend for my students and my clients. But the core focus of this still stands, that if you are struggling to see progress in your language studies, if you're struggling to balance multiple languages, if you are struggling to know if something's working, like you added in a new resource and you're like, I don't know if it's helpful, I'm doing it, this is what I recommend for you. And so if you want a copy of this tracker, it is completely free. Both options are completely free. You can grab it. The link is in the description of this video. And let me know how it goes. A question that I have for you all when it comes to those trackers is, what languages are you planning to use this tracker with? So are you doing this with all of them? And if so, let me know what languages. If you're going to focus just on one language at a time, what are those languages? And then what are you hoping to discover or learn about yourself by using this tracker? Because again, setting your intentions before diving into resources is one of the best things, because then you know what you're doing. You're not wandering and like, oh, this is nice, but why am I here? You're actually doing this for a purpose, for a goal. And then if it doesn't happen, you know it didn't work for you, you know it wasn't helpful. And then that's also feedback you can give me, because then I can make these resources better. And so I hope that you found this helpful.